Hey everyone, and welcome to your fourth week of class. This video is a quick breakdown of exactly what's going on this week and why it matters. So, first is first, you have a lot to do this week, right? So you have your review essay, which is a very big deal. It's your rough draft. It's your first draft of that essay. You have 3 chapters, 2 stories, 2 videos, and a movie. Only, to be fair, only 4 minutes of that movie as far as a comparison in your film journal to the Harry Potter chapter you've read, but still part of the assignment sheet this week, right? So I have decided to not add an additional story, the yellow wallpaper, to our class schedule, only because we'd have to add it maybe this week or next week, and it just doesn't really jive as far as notice, but also as far as content. So if you would like to read the yellow wallpaper, like I mentioned at the beginning of the course, I will make it a bonus assignment probably in the next few weeks. So do keep what you read in mind this week for whenever that comes up, whenever that pops up later. But I'll go ahead and send you a message then about that story and that bonus assignment later. Other things I can tell you, your 3 chapters have to do with point of view, character, and setting. Setting is one of my all-time favorite things to cover because we are reading Harry Potter directly kind of to correlate into setting. And the first chapter is just more than perfect for a lesson in setting, but the other chapters are actually very good too. Maybe a little confusing, and that's okay. That's why you have discussion questions and journals and things like that. But if you have any questions in addition to those questions, let me know and I'll answer your questions for sure. Other things to tell you, you have 2 stories. You have Mansfield's The Garden Party, and you do have Harry Potter Chapter 1. You're welcome to read as much Harry Potter as you want. I'm requiring Chapter 1 for our course. And from there, you'll see only content that has to do with Chapter 1 on the midterm, on the final, in questions. You don't have to worry about, an extreme level of Harry Potter being used in any of your classwork. But I will say, if you answer any of the questions that have to do with Harry Potter with something from book 7, we don't want to hear it. That's not on par with the course. We're only reading chapter 1, which means you can only pull from close reading chapter 1, right? I don't want to see any content from what happens in Deathly Hallows. That's not what we're doing here, right? We're not going into a long cap of all of Mansfield's work, much less all of Rowling's work, right? So make sure that you're keeping your focus nice and pinpoint into just the chapter we're reading. If you're interested in more, you're welcome to do that on your own. What I can tell you about The Garden Party, one of the most charming little stories. It's a short story by Mansfield. She's Australian. She wrote a lot of short stories, but this one's probably the one that she's known for the most. And it's about It's about a little girl who throws, what a surprise, a garden party with her family. A very tragic incident happens at the village down below, and she is kind of stuck in a place, without me ruining it, she's stuck in a place where she has incredible sympathy for that tragedy, but it's also part of a completely different cast set, right? So read the story. Make sure that you take into account plot, right? Because we covered plot last week. You want to keep building on your knowledge here. You want to take into account plot. The themes are important. The characters are important. The point of view is important. But knowing what happens in the story is probably your first step, right? So if you don't know what happened, find out what happens. Use whatever you need to find out what happens. Then reread the story. Make sure you understand it before you answer the questions that build on that knowledge. We're moving on in the course. You're going to keep needing to build on that knowledge. So do keep that in mind. Harry Potter, I don't see you having a big issue with as far as content or plot goes. Try not to just watch the movie. I'll be able to tell in your response, right? I want some really close reading, quotes directly from that first chapter. I need you to have a good insight as to who these characters are without further knowledge in the books, just what you see in the text. And then the film, you'll do a film journal to do a little comparison work, which should be interesting. Your previous comparison work has been very interesting to read. You're going to keep doing it. Next week we have Maleficent. The following we have multiple weeks in Gatsby. We'll do it for Gatsby as well. Your film journals are turning out really neat, which I'm really excited about. This is the first time we do them in the class. Other things I can tell you, the review essay. If you haven't already reviewed the documentation for this first essay, it's a major assignment. Do that. Read those documents. Also, this is the first week you'll be submitting a smart thinking tutoring response. That means, and I've already seen this in my other classes, you have to write your paper. Yeah, thrilling stuff. You have to write your paper. Then you submit it to the Smart Thinking Tutor. There's a tutorial on exactly how to do that on our course page. From there, you're going to wait 24 hours for them to get back to you, right? But you know your paper went through because you have a receipt in your LSU email account. So you're covered there. Then you read their notes. You say, oh, those things did need to be changed. Or, oh, yeah, I can see what this tutor was talking about. You revise your paper. And then by the end of the week, you turn in your rough draft and that response form the tutor gave to you to me in their drop boxes, right? So make sure you're not submitting two versions of your paper. That's weird, right? If I ask for a smart thinking tutoring response, I want the form that they send to you saying, hey, here are your corrections. And then I also want your polished rough draft so that I can see what you've done. I can see how it compares to what the tutor suggested you do because your paper is included in their response form. And I can see those changes, right? Just a quick recap. 4 papers this first round. Your first and second drafts are sent through the tutoring response form people, right? Smart thinking people. I will give you a group message saying what needs to improve, what doesn't need to improve, what everyone's doing right, what everyone's doing wrong. And when you get to your final draft, I give you individual comments, right? You're going to keep working with your tutor until that final draft. This isn't incredibly unfair because you're allowed to revise your paper throughout the semester, right? So take into account what the tutor says. Take into account in the following week what I say in your group email. Take into account all the things you need to be doing as far as your MLA checklist goes. Are you rereading your paper out loud? Or someone else reading your paper for you and telling you some comments, right? You can send it to your tutor 1 billion times if you have the time. But make sure you're taking all those things into account before your final draft because then I will give you comments. And if it's stupid stuff, you didn't space your paper correctly or you are missing tons of capitalization, stupid stuff, right? This is my face literally when you do dumb things. Don't do dumb things, right? You have checklists and tutors to catch those things. You lose a lot of points if you just ignore all that stuff, right? Because it sounds like you don't want to learn and you don't really care, which sucks, right? Don't do that. So make sure you're invested at the start for this review essay. It is on the Sherlock Holmes piece. If you have issues with the Sherlock Holmes piece, now is the time to ask me because I will notice if you have not read it or did not understand it when you try to write about it in this paper, right? So, okay, let me know if there's anything else. Otherwise, you're free as birds. Enjoy yourself. Expect an audio lecture on Sherlock Holmes. Someone let me know that it didn't upload last week. That's my bad. Expect that soon, just for your pleasure in listening. And then also expect a lecture on Harry Potter and setting with a small tidbit from Mansfield's The Garden Party, but mostly we're going to focus on setting in that lecture. Everything else is covered in your forums and your journals, so get to work. And I will see you all later.